Happy Friday, everyone, and welcome to the Early Edge, brought to you by BetMGM, the sportsbook born in Vegas. We got a lot of picks on today's show, but we're down one man thanks to travel arrangements kind of going askew to these college football playoff games. Before we get to that, let's take a look at how we did on the recap screen, and it's a rare losing day. We've rattled off plenty of winning days over the last 2-3 weeks. This one, not so great. Martin Green's parlay from Wednesday, that's graded here now with an X. Larry Hartstein hits his pick. McKenzie 0 for 2, unfortunately. Penn State money line, that one could have gone either way. Sportsline picks missed. Buckets 1 out of 2. I missed my golf pick, but I did hit a first-round leader. Problem with that is it was chopped 6 ways. So there you go there. I will say this. On Tuesday's show, I believe I gave out a T30 on Harry Hall. He's tied for first place right now. That was at plus 125. So hopefully on Monday we see a check mark there, and we have some NFL picks that are pending as well. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's a different type of Friday because we're down a man here. Nonetheless, you know the drill. It's BPE Friday. Oh, man. I know what you're all thinking. Mike's reading. Buckets is very ill, but he's here for the people. Like he always shows up and he's always here for the people. But more importantly, Chip Patterson, he's not here. He had the travel plans that went askew. So unfortunately, you all are going to have to generate some chip me up in the chat. You guys are going to have to carry the load here. Normally, I would go to Buckets. But Buckets has all kinds of issues going on, and I don't want him talking very much. So, Buckets, I am going to just kind of cast aside the how you doing today. I want to go right to Mike McClure. Mike, Notre Dame wins yesterday. Listen, that game absolutely could have gone either way. Just a terrible decision by Drew Aller, and that could have gone into overtime. Who knows who would have won? Nonetheless, you are a man that's holding not one, but 2 futures tickets on Notre Dame. So your reaction to that game last night and your thoughts on Notre Dame facing one of 2 teams, Ohio State and Texas.
You know, I think you're correct in that the game could have gone either way, Sia. And it's not often that you see how evenly split it was. I was just looking at the time of possession in that game. Notre Dame, 29 minutes, 55 seconds. Penn State, 30 minutes, 5 seconds. It was 10 seconds difference of time of possession in this game. You know when those 10 seconds were? Essentially, after Notre Dame made the game-winning field goal, Penn State got the ball back for those few seconds. Otherwise, this game was dead even, split down the middle. Penn State 2 for 2 on 4th down, won the turnover battle, held Notre Dame to 2.8 yards per carry in the running game, and Notre Dame still found a way to win the game. Credit to Marcus Freeman. Again, the turnaround, and I say the turnaround is like there was a connotation of maybe losing some bigger games early in his career, and then obviously the huge loss early this season to Northern Illinois. But this team has turned it around. The big reaction here for me was the fact that Riley Leonard was able to go clear that concussion protocol and get back in the football game. You know, if we're talking like an NFL game, you're probably not clearing concussion protocol that quickly. So that's an interesting wrinkle in college football playoff as well. Incredible game, like truly instant classic in terms of game getting tied. I thought we were maybe going to get overtime there. Absolutely incredible game. I'm not sure that Notre Dame is a much better team than Penn State. I think they're very, very equal, kind of like we all really thought, why you had a lot of sharp people on both sides. But nonetheless, Notre Dame moving on and excited to see who they're going to face.
Quick question before we get to Bucket's soccer pick. And we got a lot of picks. We got some Sportsline picks, a couple of them for the NBA. I've got 2 golf picks to give out for round 2 of the Sony Open. I've got an NFL pick that I put on Sportsline yesterday that I'm going to give out on this show as well. And Mike, of course, has a bet on this college football playoff game tonight, Ohio State, Texas. Mike, real quick, before we get to Bucket's pick, the look-ahead lines, as of yesterday, I haven't actually checked them this morning, but I'm sure they're very similar. The look-ahead lines, when it came to Notre Dame versus Texas and when it came to Notre Dame versus Ohio State, from what I recall, Ohio State was a 7.5-point favorite against Notre Dame if they make it, and Texas was a 2.5-point favorite, I believe, over Notre Dame. Do any of those lines, you know, because we are going to get one of those 2 matchups. Maybe the line will change. Maybe there'll be injuries. I don't know. But do any of those lines seem out of whack to you, depending on who makes it?
You know, I've got them pulled up right now, and the line actually is Ohio State 9.5 over Notre Dame, which I do think is a lot. I do think Notre Dame, or I do think Ohio State would be right around that touchdown favorite. Unless Ohio State goes out there and just wins by 3 scores tonight, I don't envision the scenario where this thing would close at 9.5. I think we'd likely see 7.5 or 8. And then in Texas, it's going to be a flat field goal likely if Texas is favored, or if Texas wins and beats Ohio State. I would expect Texas to open -3 against Notre Dame and probably close anywhere from 2 to 3, but certainly would be favored.
All right. By the way, our recap screen was not correct, but it was not correct in a good way. So good stuff. We were not 3-7. We still have a losing record, but we were 4-6. And you know what? That looks and sounds a lot better than 3-7. So there was an over on that recap screen that we had graded as a loss. It was a win. 4-6. Again, a lot of winning days over the last 3 weeks. Today was not one of them, but we'll take the adjustment there. All right, Buckets. We got to adjust your take here because I know you're not feeling well. And I got to I'm looking right at you. Well, I'm not looking at you technically, but it looks like I'm looking right at you. I really appreciate you being on the show for the people, giving out a pick. Keep it short if you want. I know talking is actually not super easy to do right now. What you got?
Yeah, it turns out I wasn't having a flu game. I was having a strep throat game yesterday. So not perfectly ideal. Tough start to January, but as always, we move. And we move to France's League One this afternoon with Nantes taking on AS Monaco. I'm going to keep this take super short here, guys. We're taking AS Monaco over 1.5 team total at -110. Almost even money for a Nantes side that is doing fine, but is not good enough to stop a Monaco side that specifically on the road is playing well. Monaco have won now 12 of their last 17 road fixtures in this league. And in their last 5 head-to-head against Nantes, they've scored 2+ goals. They are the much better team that got a much-needed break over the holidays. I think Monaco score 3 here. So the fact that we get 2 at almost even money, I will take all day, Sia.
All right, we'll take the over 1.5 from Buckets. And shout out to, I think a couple of you, or more than a couple of you did this, but Mark M. and Mark Buckholz, all the Marks, they did the Chip Patterson intro. They said, good morning, Sia. Good morning, M squared. Good morning, Buckets. Good morning, Early Edge fam. LFG, says Mark M. and Mark Buckholz. Absolutely love to see it. We got a lot of you in the chat giving out picks, giving out advice. Big Cheesy, Brad Betts Footy, Chris Kish, Mr. Big, Eric David. Thank you for being in here. Kevin McKenzie, Mark Gillett, really good stuff. All right, we've got a couple of Sportsline picks before we move forward to my pick and Mike's pick. Bulls Wizards. We're taking the under 243. This is a Sportsline model A graded pick. Okay, it's Bulls Wizards under 243 and Magic +6 versus the Bucks. We're taking the Orlando Magic +6 versus the Milwaukee Bucks. Those are 2 NBA picks. We got an NFL pick, at least one coming from me coming up. And I do want to remind everybody about the BetMGM promo that you can use this weekend. Bet on a player to find the end zone and win a share of $250,000 in bonus bets if they end up scoring the longest touchdown of the week. A touchdown is always 6 points, but the longest one could mean you get $250,000 in bonus bets. Wager on any player to score during a game. If your pick has the longest touchdown of the week, you'll win big-time bonus bets on top of your wager. Here's how it works. Opt in to the longest touchdown jackpot promotion. Place a $10 plus anytime touchdown wager up to 1 eligible bet per game. If your player scores the longest touchdown of the week, you'll win a share of $250,000 in bonus bets. That sounds like a really fun promotion that I'm going to take a shot at this weekend. We got a lot of NFL picks throughout the weekend on Sportsline. One coming up next, a couple of golf picks, college football coming up next. One more message from our partners.
It's the beginning, we just got started. It's the beginning, we just got started.
I'm catching up on the chat here on the Early Edge, and I believe there's so many comments here that I can't keep up with everything. We got a lot of Harry Hall comments, but it looks like Chris Kish. Is it a birthday for Chris Kish? If it's a birthday for Chris Kish today, everybody say happy birthday if you haven't already in the chat. Chris, a very dedicated, there we go. Jeff Stenberg says happy birthday. Speaking of dedicated Early Edge viewers, listeners, and cappers, we got Jeff in here. We got Kipper's Picks in here. We got Chris Kish. Chris, you're a great dude. We've had a chance to chat, and I'm very much wishing you a happy birthday along with on behalf of the entire team here at the Early Edge and Sportsline. All right. Yesterday, we hit Harry Hall first round leader, but it was a 6-way chop. It was 55-1. It sounds good, but 6-way chop. We're not putting a lot of money on these first round leaders. It's not something I can really celebrate. It's a hit nonetheless. We lost our 3-ball. don't forget last week, and we're going to get to my picks in a second. Last week, my two main picks, and I actually kind of went heavy on these. What were Harry Hall over Nick Taylor on Thursday and Friday in a matchup? And yesterday it was Josh Lucero, who I don't know if he's in the chat. He was on Twitter and he said, Sia, you are the Harry Hall whisperer, especially in the context of hitting him in round one and having him in a top 30 at plus 125 for this week's tournament. Well, going back to Harry Hall, folks, my first of two golf picks is a 3-ball matchup that will be available on all sports books. My next pick might not be available on all sports books. So this is the one that is available. Harry Hall plus 120 over Seamus Power, Brandt Snedeker. You might remember, if you heard my first round leaders yesterday, if you saw my tweet, I did mention all the first round leaders on the show yesterday, but Seamus Power was one of my first round leaders. I don't put him in the same class of Harry Hall. I do expect him to bounce back from yesterday. I think yesterday was a lot of him shaking off the rust, but frankly, especially with these wins up, now Power's good. He's fine in the win, but Harry Hall's short game has been so elite and his ball striking has been pretty elite lately too. So I do think when we're talking about class of golfers, whether it's round two or any round, Harry Hall over Seamus Power just makes a lot of sense. And Brandt Snedeker right now, the state of his game, really for the last few years, it really just hasn't been there. So Harry Hall plus 120 over Seamus Power, Brandt Snedeker. Your book might have it at plus 115. Totally fine. Next pick. This is a round two matchup, but it's under 3-ball matchup. This one you can only find at DK. So Ben Griffin minus 125 over Thomas Dietrich. This was the same type of pick we had last week when we had Harry Hall over Nick Taylor. You got to go to matchups, and then you got to go to round 3 matchups as opposed to round two matchups as opposed to round 2 3-balls. You will find this pick. Scroll over to the right. Ben Griffin minus 125 over Thomas Dietrich. Ben Griffin was a guy that I kind of overlooked for this tournament. He is such a good course fit. Somebody I probably should have had on my radar. So I'm going to attack him here. Short game has been good. Ball striking has been good. History here pretty good too. Ben Griffin minus 125 over Thomas Dietrich, who's good, by the way. And the putter can get red hot. Outside of the putter, though, I think Ben Griffin has all the advantages, and Ben Griffin can be a good putter at times too. Now we transition to the NFL pick. Olamide Zaccheaus, Washington Commander, firmly the wide receiver too. We have Terry McLaurin, Zach Ertz at tight end, the other pass catcher outside of perhaps Austin Eckler, who Mike and I talked a lot about on Fantasy Football Today DFS. It's going to be Olamide Zaccheaus. And this guy he's smashing this number. Over the last 3 games as the wide receiver too, he's sailed over this number. Take the over 36.5 in a likely neutral or negative game script. Jaden Daniels slated to pass for around 230 yards. Some of that will go to McLaurin, some of that Ertz, some of that Eckler, but some of that certainly to Zaccheaus. So take the over 36.5 receiving yards. It's 37.5 at some books. I'm fine with that number. I'd play this up to 38, 39.5. All right. Those are 3 picks, 2 for today, 1 for Sunday. Mike, you have a pick for tonight. Talk to me.
Yes, going to go back to the well. Played this in the Notre Dame game last night. It's my first quarter play. I'm going to go under in the first quarter here. At MGM currently, you can play this 12.5 minus 120. A lot of other places are going to be hanging 10.5. There is no real difference between 12.5 and 10.5 in the first quarter of a college football game here. I also have seen questions about the 13.5 at minus 145. I would not play that. I prefer the 10.5 or the 12.5 here. When I look at this matchup, look, you're betting against 2 touchdowns, obviously, at this point. So these 2 teams are fantastic defensively. We've seen Texas kind of struggle in the red zone in a lot of matchups. That should be true here. Again, this is one of the best defensive fronts in college football. And I expect a little bit of a conservative game plan there. So if you're Texas, if you're going to have success in this game, you have to be able to run the football. You cannot get into obvious passing situations, especially with Quinn Ewers the way he's playing. So for me, I think that it's going to be a start where they run the football a little bit early. Ohio State as well. I think they try to get those running backs involved. But if you're talking Texas defensively here, especially early in the game, goal number 1, Jeremiah Smith does not get behind the defense. You make Will Howard dink and dunk down the field and basically try to hold him to 3 in the red zone. I think that's going to be the strategy here from Texas, is essentially willingly give up the field goal, willingly make them dink and dunk down the field like some teams do in the NFL, frankly. So for me, I just like this number because I don't think we get the 70-yard touchdown play in the first few minutes of this game. So we're betting against 2 touchdowns. I think we get a 7-3 game, and I think we cash this ticket at 10.5. So I went first quarter under here. I think it plays very, very similar to what we saw in the Notre Dame game last night.
Yeah, I was thinking about playing a first half under in that Notre Dame game. I was also kind of on Notre Dame. I mentioned that yesterday, but I mean, take that for what it's worth. I don't cap a lot of college football, but I love how that game started from an under standpoint. And I do think when teams feel like their backs are against the wall in college, then they start opening it up. Sometimes that takes till the second half, late second quarter. Let me ask you this, because by the way, I didn't realize Martin Green was in the chat. So that's awesome. We know Buckets is probably trying to conserve his voice and his throat right now. So if you have questions for Buckets, certainly ask him in the chat, but Martin Green appears to be there as well. There were a couple things, Mike, on this game, and I know you have something else as well, but I don't know if you have any sort of pick on this game in terms of the final outcome, but CLE fan says M2 has Texas winning at work, but did I hear that right? And then Mark Buckholt says, I think Mike is leaning towards Texas. Do you have a lean in the overall outcome?
Yeah, be a Texas lean. I have the number at 4, just under 4. So yeah, Texas at 6 or better. Wouldn't play it at 5.5, but 6 or better would be a Texas lean for me. And I see some questions. Don't play it at 10. No, definitely play it at 10. There's no difference in 12.5 and 10.5 in a first quarter in a college football game. So definitely play it at 10, 10.5 for sure. Yeah.
Buckets, without using your voice, I just want you to know that KC3 says, Buckets, how about an interception prop? Quinn Ewers or Will Howard? Of course, you know, because you're a big Ohio State fan. Will Howard plays for Ohio State. Quinn Ewers is the quarterback for Texas, in case that wasn't super clear. Maybe you flip a coin, and if you hold up a 1, then it's Quinn Ewers throws the interception. And if you hold up a 2, it's Will Howard throws the interception. I don't know. What do you think?
Sia, I'm going to have to use my voice here because this is absolutely embarrassing on my end. I've lost the coin. I have no idea where the coin is right now, so I'm going to need to find that. But while I'm talking and rambling here, we did get a good question about the Leverkusen matchup in Germany, if I can address that real quick.
Yeah.
Dortmund versus Leverkusen playing this afternoon. It's the first game back for the Bundesliga after the Christmas break. A lot of people are going to want to bet Leverkusen here, but just be careful because Dortmund, while they haven't been great this season, they've got the best home record in all of Germany. They have not lost at home. I would actually look towards a draw in this game, which I rarely bet, but just be careful sleeping on Dortmund.
All right. Tyler Graham says, Sia, do you like Griffin over Dietrich and Fishburne? Are you sure that's the 3 ball? Oh, yeah, that does make sense that would be the 3 ball. At plus 150, yes. But I will say Fishburne has potential as the third leg of that. He has potential to actually win this 3 ball because it's plus 150 and because I believe in Ben Griffin over these two guys. I think it's an okay 3 ball to take. That's the conventional 3 ball that's offered at every book with Ben Griffin. Again, I just isolated Thomas Dietrich in this one. Tyler, I do like that. I think it's bettable. I'm personally not betting it. So usually what that means is people on my leans maybe lower their unit size. But again, plus 150, pretty compelling. It's good, not great. Eckler over 2.5 receptions, says Big Cheesy. I know he was also watching yesterday's FFT DFS show, Mike. Real quick, before we get to the recap screen, your thoughts on Eckler over 2.5 receptions?
I do love it. Again, I think Eckler will be RB1 for the Commanders in this game. I don't think they try to run the ball very much at all. A lot of Jaden Daniels scrambling, a lot of Austin Eckler. I actually made this comment on HQ yesterday, last night. I think there's a chance that he goes over 2.5 receptions on one drive. I think if they're trailing in this game, he has 2 to 3 receptions on a single drive in this game. So I like it. And if you're one that likes live betting, I would consider if they're neutral or trailing, I would consider playing it live, mid second quarter, early third quarter.
I'll say this too. I believe Mike and I and others are on CBS Sports Network at 12 o'clock. It is going to be big time wild card focused, and we're going to be on that show pretty much the whole time. So we're going to talk a lot of NFL today at 12 on CBS Sports Network, and I'm going to be on HQ. Mike's always on HQ, but I'll just point out I'll be on HQ between 6 and 7 o'clock too, also talking NFL wild card. Buckets, go ahead.
Trust me, I don't want to be talking, but thank you for letting me real quick. I made a mistake, so I have to own up to this. Martin's bet hasn't lost either yet. His Galatasaray parlay, it wasn't the Galatasaray Cup game that took place a couple days ago. It was the Galatasaray match taking place on Sunday. So we're not even 4 and 6. We're 4 and 5 with one game pending still for Martin. That parlay is still alive. That's my bad, everyone.
I love it. Okay, so we have a chance to go 5 and 5 on a recap screen that we thought was 3 and 7. That is fantastic. All right, listen, mistakes happen, and I like the fact that we're putting too many losses as opposed to too many wins, because then people think we're just like lying. So yeah, the recap screen is 4-5 with a couple of picks pending. We'll take that. Hopefully you listen to the whole show, because if you just listen to the beginning for some reason, you're like, oh, these guys went 3-7. That's not very good. All right, we'll take it. Again, a lot of great recap screens over the last few weeks. This one, not great, but not nearly as bad as we thought. Martin Green in the chat, he says, justice is served. Listen, now that one has to win, right? Because we counted it as a loss. That's how that works. If we had counted it as a win by accident, it would have definitely lost. The reverse is also true. We got a lot going on right now. Thank you for being in the chat. Thanks for all the corrections in there as well. Let's take a look at the recap screen before we get out of here. Hopefully we've got a winning Monday on our hands. And I should note, Sunday night primetime. Yeah, we're going to be here for that, for the wild card round. That's going to be the Washington game, Monday night primetime. Vikings, Rams, we're going to be here for that too. So make sure you have your notifications on this Sportsline YouTube channel. Round 2, 3 ball, Harry Hall plus 120 over Seamus Power and Brant Snedeker. This doesn't get started for like 5-6 hours. Don't forget, they're out in Hawaii. So they do get started, before the next 5 or 6 hours, but this one goes off pretty late in the day. My round 2 matchup, Ben Griffin minus 125 over Thomas Dietrich. Again, that one not available at every book. That's under the round 2 3-ball matchups. That language is very specific. Olamide Zacchaeus over 36.5 receiving yards at minus 111. Sportsline picks, Bulls Wizards under 243. Magic plus 6 against the Bucks. Mike McClure, Texas Ohio State tonight, first quarter under 12.5 at minus 120. And Buckets, Nantes versus AS Monaco. Monaco over 1.5 team total at minus 110. Great show. A lot of birthdays apparently. It wasn't just Chris. So for any of you that I missed, happy birthday to you as well. It was a great show. We definitely missed Chip Patterson. I'll be perfectly honest with you. But he'll be back next Friday. And I thought we picked up the slack. Buckets, thanks for being here. I know you're not feeling well. Mike, thanks for all the analysis, all the picks, all the answers to the questions. We dove deep into college football. We talked a lot of NFL. We talked a lot of soccer. And we gave out some NBA picks as well. So hopefully we see some green check marks on Monday's recap screen. Let's have a great Friday, everybody. On behalf of Mike McClure, Buckets, we've got Ben and Claire on the 1s and 2s and 3s and 4s. I'm the Counselor of Cash. This is the Early Edge. Have a great Friday, everybody. We rest our case.